Are you tired of hearing that this is dead and that is dead? Here's what is not dead. Anything. Email is not dead. Courses are not dead. Workshops are not dead. Webinars are not dead. Hell, even writing letters to people is not dead. Even buying somebody you like a bottle of wine isn't dead. Here's what is actually dead. The phrase X is dead. Why? Well, it's become a cliche, hasn't it? Because 9 times out of 10, that person who says, here's what's dead, is going to then go on to sell you something that is presumably alive. And it's a simple marketing hack to grab your attention. Here's another one. Here's something that nobody is talking about. And then that person inevitably goes on to tell you something that loads of other people are talking about. Now, this video is not a rant. This video, in fact, is about what can be finest in us and what can be finest, by extension, in our business. Things become cliche because at some point or other they were found to be effective. And therefore, other people see that that has been effective, and so they use it themselves. There's some neighbourly dogs, by the way. We've got new neighbours, and so you may have to put up with some barking dogs for a minute or two. So the dogs are not dead. So those things became cliches because so many people use them, and nowadays there are all kinds of modern terms, aren't there, for that kind of copying, essentially, is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with copying. People call it hacking, people call it modelling, people call it emulating, people call it getting inspired by, etc. Now, of course, we know, don't we? There's the neighbour's new car. We know, or the new neighbour's car, I don't think the car itself is new. We know, don't we, that that kind of modelling itself, well, there's nothing wrong with it. Many of the great artists and creatives in the world and in history started off by studying and emulating other great people. But what did they do eventually, of course, was they took all of that knowledge that they'd gained over time and through practice, and then they made it their own. And today's video is going to be about that tiny little process, making it our own. That is, in my view, the key not only to our own success as individuals, but without sounding too grandiose, to our success as a species. Because if you look at what's occurring today, and by the way, I don't want to be hypocritical, these are things I've done myself. What happens today is we can now shortcut that modelling process, and we can take examples of greatness, whatever we may think of as being great, and we can cut and paste and transcribe and otherwise copy those, and then we can bung them all into a large language model and have that extract out the principles which we then clothe our own particular shtick, our own language, etc. around. Now, that process of submitting the material to the large language model and having it churn out the results means, in effect, if we all do that, that we're all going to end up with some form or other of business foundation based on the work of others, churned through the algorithms contained within large language models. And it's a black box model. Nobody quite understands how it works. So let's head over to the table and have a little sit down and think what that actually means for us as elders of the tribe, as experts in our field, and what it means more broadly for the entire human species. Here we are at the table. So let's bring to the table the process itself. That mysterious black box process is based on a fundamental assumption about intelligence itself. It's said, isn't it, that artificial general intelligence is just around the corner, and then at some point some form of super intelligence that will be far more impressive than any of us poor souls as individuals, and certainly even more impressive than us collectively, and in fact we could face an existential threat to our entire species based on the fact that this form of intelligence may decide to get rid of us. So that assumption of intelligence is essentially materialistic. Now, without getting philosophical, what does that mean? It means that the assumption is that by arranging a certain number of algorithms and a certain degree of servers and a certain amount of information chucked in to that process, intelligence comes out as a result. So even were that true, what is our journey and our purpose in creating a business? I would argue that it's not simply about making money. And if you speak to anyone who's made any money doing business, they will all tell you the same thing. It's not about the money. So whilst we don't have money, it might be about the money. As you know from my previous videos, at times for me it's really been about the money. But ultimately, we're in business, my friend, in order to bring our expertise to others, surely, and have some kind of positive effect on this beautiful planet Earth. So intelligence, our process, is not purely materialistic, I would argue. And it's an interesting fact that some of the most hard-nosed physicists, some of the cutting-edge neuroscientists, biophysicists, biologists, chemists, and others are having to reach the conclusion based on hard-nosed physical evidence, not belief, not opinion, that there must have been some kind of super intelligence in a real way that created the entire known universe. Now, if I sound at risk of going off into the stratospheres of metaphysics, forgive me. This does have a profound implication for our business and indeed our approach to business. Because by going through the same process ourselves, instead of abnegating that process to the mysterious black box of the materialist world of artificial intelligence, supposing we submit those very same ideas to the world of our own human intelligence. Now there's a thought. Because if it is the case that we contain, as I believe we do, incredible levels of depth, complexity, creativity, intelligence, inspiration, intuition, and all kinds of qualities that we can bring and shape and mold and create a beautiful business with, how and why are we giving that process over to a materialist process? No matter how impressive that materialist process is, it remains purely materialist. Whereas we are now being told, and this is not about belief necessarily, that the chances of life occurring itself are infinitesimally unlikely. I mean, to the orders of magnitude unlikely. That the idea that there was this endless trial and error process going on and eventually, boom, a magic happened and life was created is simply statistically impossible. That the universe could have gone on for trillions and trillions and trillions of years in a lifeless state, because every single parameter that has caused life to come into being is based on tiny, tiny, tiny likelihoods. And when you multiply those together, you get a mind-boggling statistical unlikelihood that life just happened as a matter of chance. And if we are indeed a part of life, then what we do, including our business life, our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with nature, our relationships with our clients, is all an expression of that life. Now, if I am losing you in the hallways of complexity, what this means in real terms is that by taking the journey of molding our business in our own shape, based on our own values, based on our own unique and inimitable life force, life experiences, life's wisdom, life's joys and triumphs and disasters, life's lessons, by shaping and bringing all that to bear into our business, we create something of wonder. We create something unique and inestimable. We create something that contributes to the planet in a positive way. And then money follows as a result of that. So let's continue our walk and let's sum up what this actually means for you in terms of practical steps that you can take today in order to start to bring that value to life. So how do we bring all this complexity and all these layers and all this value to life, Howard, and actually create a business that other people are going to want and need and buy? Well, that's the question that I've been dealing with for the last 50 years. Here's what I found out when I was 9 years old or 11 years old or whatever age it was. I'm not good with numbers. Don't tell anyone, because for 10 years I was a senior financial manager. But anyway, I am good with numbers in that sense, but I'm not good with numbers when it comes to what age I was when I did this and how many of that and how many of this. But at around the age of 9, as you may know, if you know me, I grew up in a sales-soaked environment, but it wasn't selling tins of beans, it was selling antiquarian maps and prints, things in themselves of inestimable value and beauty in this world, things created by people who took a great deal of care, not only to make a map physically useful, but to make it unarguably beautiful as an object in itself. And that's why people wanted it. So the first thing I would say is get yourself out into the bosom, or otherwise, of nature. Now, I know you might live in a city, but surely you must have some kind of park or lake where there's a few ducks quacking. There is no place on earth that we are more suited than this, out in nature. Get out from behind the desk, go on, pull the chair out, get yourself a recording device. I'm using my phone and a selfie stick. You can use your phone these days to record notes if you don't like writing, or you can go and sit somewhere with a book, with a notebook, a journal, and breathe and just say to yourself, Howard has reassured me that I contain within me a treasure trove of inestimable value, a deep well, a valley of expertise and wonder, and all I need to do really is to bring that out and then to give shape to it. And that's what I'm doing on this channel. You may have noticed that I experiment a lot. I use artificial intelligence, I use scripts, I do what I'm doing today, which is unscripted material. Now, this isn't in order to work out what my business should be. It's in order to get the creation of one of those fine maps. And when I create one of those fine maps, you will want to, inverted commas, buy it. In other words, you will watch it, you will comment on it, you will say, God, Howard, that video is really good, mate. And if my products are met with silence or with bewilderment, then what the hell? I make another map the next week, the next day. And on that journey, in that process itself of iteration, I'm going through it publicly here in YouTube, in the wonders of that particular algorithm. You can go through it privately or with some mates, or if you want, you can join my group. Just let me know about it. There's still 6 places left. I have 6 founder members, wonderful people, and you can't get in without getting past yours truly. So I'm going to be talking to you to see if you're suitable. But if you want to join that group, let me know. But it doesn't matter. There are other groups. My group is not the only one. Find yourself a group, because it's when we join with other beings of inestimable value and expertise and sensibility and sensitivity, we grow, we refine, we realize what is landing and what isn't. And hey, I'm part of groups. That's one of the main ways I've learned in the past. It's one of the main ways I still learn today. And hey, look, we should never stop learning. So you take that raw material that you've produced from your voice notes or from your journal, I would say throw everything out at this point that's to do with an algorithm of materialist proportions. In other words, a large language model, and look instead to the beauties of nature to inspire you. Look instead to your own inner nature to inspire you. And when you feel that expansive sense of what it is you could produce, what it is you could bring, what it is you want to talk about, what it is you want to do in this world, what it is you want to affect, who you want to reach, why, the how will begin to shape itself. How do I know? Because when I was 11, I didn't know, or 9, or whatever I was, I didn't know how to sell. We're not born knowing how to sell. Perhaps as children, we learn very quickly how to negotiate for the next ice cream, right? But we don't know how to sell, particularly to wily old dealers from all over the world who wanted to get their grubby little hands on my father's wonderful maps for the lowest possible price. So being subjected to all of those people for so many years, I attended my father's stand in Portobello Road for the next 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it was. I learned the rules of the game when it comes to selling. And even then, in my 30s, was the very first time I did any kind of official sales training. And then I learned a whole new layer of sales complexity. And then again in my 50s, as a senior wealth manager in Shanghai, I learned a whole new set of more sophisticated sales and networking techniques. So, what does this mean for you? It means you don't have to know everything out of the gate. It means you learn by doing. So you get hold of something from that notebook, from that journal, that's come out of you. Now, at that point, if you wish, you have my very full permission to subject that to a large language model and say, well, what do you make of this? Because that is your material, and that can be compared and contrasted and set against the mass of the internet material that the large language model has access to. I don't see that that is particularly harmful. However, I do think, given the fact that we are so deeply creative, so brilliantly original, so wonderfully innovative, so capable of inspiration and intuition if you believe in that, and instinct if you don't, that we have created so many things of wonder as human beings. If we get together with another group of human beings, and this, by the way, is not some kind of disguised argument for my group, the Crucible. This is an argument for groups of humans. If we subject those ideas to a sensitive group of humans we can develop those ideas in relative safety, and we can increase our chances of getting success and resonance and take-up in this world. Because I've gone on now from the world of Portobello Road Market and those wily old dealers to sell globally, to train sales professionals globally, heck, to train senior executives at Apple, to work in 3 or 4 continents, and to have expanded that initial understanding of the sales process out into a global business that led me from scratch in the Shanghai example to taking care of over £13 million worth of my clients' hard-won investments, to take care of their future, to help them plan for their children, their education, their retirement, and really, really significant things of value. When we simply submit ourselves to the cliches and to the machine world, what value will we create? What would I rather have on my gravestone? Howard worked the algorithms and made 10 million quid? Or Howard brought his finest expertise to expression and helped 1 million people bring theirs? That is my mission in life, to help you bring your value to others. Because if I can help 1 million people to do that, those 1 million people will help countless millions of others to do whatever it is that they do best, that you do best. So that's my rant for today. Let us not abnegate the really, really wonderful things that go on in our heads, I would argue in our hearts, in our bodies, in our very being. Let us not divorce ourselves from nature and indeed from our own nature when it comes to business. Let that expression of our business be an expression of ourselves, and the refinement of our business be a refinement of ourselves, and we will escape not only the trap of cliches, which we've all fallen into one way or another, me included. We will move into an era, I believe, of extraordinary growth, extraordinary value, where we're not just flogging tins of beans, but we're presenting our version of my father's finest maps. So let me know if you like this kind of video better than my artificial intelligence ones, or you may not have seen those, of course, and it's a busy world and this is a long video, but I'd love to know from you, does this inspire you? Does this get you out from your desk and into the world of nature? Go do it now. Jot some stuff down. Imperfect is better than held inside. And by getting it out and bringing it to expression and then refining it, me, you, and the whole human species can move forward, my friend. So here's to the next week, and whatever that brings for you and for me, in terms of bringing ourselves to express beyond the world of the simple cliche.